welcome to this edition of Live by Design. I'm your host, Muadi Dibinga, and today is Wednesday, March 28th, 2012. I am really excited about today's show. We are talking about one of my favorite topics, conscious parenting. And basically what that means in short is bringing a level of intention and awareness into your interactions with your children to allow them to have an optimal learning, growing, living, and loving experience. Today, I have as my guest my brother, Omekongo Dibinga, who is a poet, he's a spoken word artist, he is a motivational speaker, but the role that he's most proud of and most committed to is that of father. And he's a father to two beautiful children, my nieces, who you'll hear me talk about on this program. You've heard me talk about them in the past, and I will continue to talk about them along with my other 7 nephews and nieces from now until I take my last breath, because I believe down to my toes that children are an ultimate blessing. They're gifts from spirit, and it's our responsibility, whether we gave birth to them or not, to create an experience that allows them to live, love, learn, and grow to the best of their capacity. Omekongo is doing a fine job of that, as are my other 3 brothers who are fathers. And so I'm excited to bring him in today just to share his experiences. He's not a childhood expert, so he's not going to be giving advice, but he's going to talk about it as a man, what it means to be a father. And I think that you're going to get something very interesting. You'll find it to be very interesting. I'm hopeful that you will learn something, if not for you, but to share with other men in your life in particular who have decided to step into the role of being a father. Now, before we get to that segment, I do have a few updates that I want to share with you. First of all, those of you who know, I am a big admirer of Oprah Winfrey, her own network, and her life class. I've recommended it in my blogs, on my newsletter. And those of you who watched the program last week, you know that I got tickets to go see her, to go to a taping of life class this coming Monday in Radio City Hall in New York City. And last week, I wasn't sure who the spiritual teacher, who the guest was going to be. It was either going to be Deepak Chopra or it's going to be Anthony Robbins. Well, I found out the other day that it is in fact going to be Deepak Chopra. Now, I'm really excited about that, but I'm a little nervous too, because Deepak is deep. And I oftentimes have to, it takes me a little while sometimes to absorb his lessons and to follow his train of thought, just because he's so rooted in spirit. He's so rooted in his work. And he's like one of the current fathers of this whole consciousness movement. So I'm really excited. I'm going to have my journal. I'm going to have my pen so I can really take those notes and come back to it later on, just in case I miss certain things. Now, for those of you who are interested in my journey to Oprah's life class, I will be tweeting ferociously throughout the entire experience. I found that we are allowed to tweet and we are allowed to take pictures. So if you're not doing so already, follow me on Twitter at @mdibinga, and beginning Monday morning as I'm making my way to Midtown Manhattan, you can walk through that experience with me. If there's an Oprah sighting, of course I'm going to tweet about that. But more importantly, my intention is to share with you whatever information, whatever knowledge, or whatever aha moments that I get on that day so that you too can benefit from the experience. And if you haven't done so already, I strongly encourage you to start watching live class on OWN. If you are interested in up-leveling your life and having a transformation and getting unstuck and really get to the root of what's been holding you back so that you can really live to your fullest, your greatest potential, you have got to watch that show. I watched the taping of, she had a guest, T.D. Jakes, on, and I had some misconceptions and some misperceptions about T.D. Jakes. Had never heard him speak, but I just made some assumptions about him. And when I watched the taping of that, my opinion of him drastically changed. I had a new found respect for him and was moved to the point of tears by what he had to offer. The first show that aired featured Iyanla Vanzant. So if you haven't done so already, if you have a Facebook account, you can still stream the archives. I strongly, strongly encourage it. You will be transformed. My other announcement that I have that I'm very excited about is that my CD, Live by Design, Confessions of a Recovering Drama Queen, will be available on CD Baby and iTunes very shortly. We're working on setting that up for you. Some people have asked me about getting that getting the DVD, the CD rather, as an MP3. And so it's going to be available on cdbaby.com. Again, follow me on Twitter because I will be announcing when that's available. You can also find me on Facebook. You can also email me at mdibinga@muadiunlimited.com, and I will be happy to share that with you. And then the final announcement, I know I have a lot of information today. We got to get to this next segment, but I'm really excited about being able to offer my information to you in a way that makes it convenient for you to access it. So those of you who are subscribed to my newsletter, you know that I put out every week a meditative thought. Well, I will be recording them and putting them on a CD that will also be available in person for purchase at various locations in Boston, but that will also be on CD Baby as well. So stay tuned for those pieces of product from me coming out. You know, people have really been responding very well. They've been very well received by people that I've coached, by people that have come to my workshops, and it's really just me sharing my thoughts, me sharing my feelings based not on from a point of thinking that I know it all, but sharing with you what I've experienced, what I've been through, sharing with you information that helped me get to this place of where I am right now. I've got a long way to go, but you know what they say, I'm not where I need to be, but thank Spirit, thank God, thank the universe that I am not where I used to be. And not only do I thank the powers that be for moving me from that path and moving me from that space, so do most of my friends and family. So if you're so inclined, please feel free, again, follow me on Twitter at mdibinga. I think that's the easiest way to sort of get me, and I will let you know when all that information is available. Now, we're going to take a little bit of a break, and when we come back, I will be introducing you to Omekongo Dibinga. We will be back in a couple of seconds. Go out, have some water, take a little break. I'll see you shortly. Bye-bye. Welcome back. I'm here again, Muadi Dibinga with Live by Design. I am so excited about this next interview. One of my biggest pet peeves as the sister to 4 men who are phenomenal fathers is the bad rap that men get relative to the parenting situation. I know the statistics, and there are statistics, and there are men out there who have given up, who have stepped away from what I believe to be one of the most important roles that they could ever adopt in life, fatherhood, as have many mothers out there. I can go online right now and Google the phrase deadbeat dad, and I'm sure I'd get 2,000,001 hits. Whereas if I were to Google men who are stepping up and stepping in, the numbers of the results rather would be a lot smaller. And so I'm frustrated by that because although there are statistics that support a significant number of men in our culture who are giving up and walking away from that responsibility, we've gotten to the point now where it's almost become a cliche. It's almost become this sort of massive assumption that we make, so much so that whereas maybe at one point the statistics were describing the culture, now I feel that, this is my perception, the culture is now following the statistics, meaning that we are giving that message out so strongly that men are no good or they don't take care of their kids, etc., etc. It's becoming so regular. It's becoming so commonplace. It's getting into our cultural DNA, so much so now that young men don't even really have an incentive to follow the role, to stay with that role and to live up to all that it calls for and all that it offers in terms of reward and just spiritual growth that comes with being a parent. And I find that to be just annoying, to be honest. So when I thought about this show, I thought, who could I bring in to really give an example of what it means to step into that father role? And luckily for me, I had a whole lot of examples. As I mentioned at the top of the hour, I have 4 brothers: Kabongo, Kamanampata, Simba, and Tete. Kabongo, Kamanampata, Omekongo, and Simba. Those are the 4 of my many brothers who are fathers. These are men who do laundry. These are men who cook, who clean, who do whatever they need to do to take care of their children. They don't babysit their children when their wives or significant others are not available. They parent. And while within the context and framework of their romantic relationships, there may be some delineation between sort of the masculine role and the feminine role, when they're parenting, the lines get blurred, meaning that they do what is necessary to raise their children. As I said, bath time, story time, cleanup time, burp time. It's not something that they do when the wives or the mothers are unavailable. It's what they do. It's a role that they have absorbed and have stepped into. My brothers. And it's not just my brothers. I have a friend, another one, Rick Brown, New York City. We used to work together, volunteering with the dance company. If we'd be in a meeting like clockwork, 6 o'clock rolls around, Mr. Brown's looking at his watch. I gotta get home. I gotta read to my kids. We need to wrap this up. Very clear about where his responsibilities were. Very clear about his priorities. Very clear about the fact that when it came to his children, there was no higher priority. I'm blessed to know numerous men who step into that role, and unfortunately they don't get the due that they deserve. And you can see me getting a little excited. I can feel myself, the temperature's rising, because we do our men a disservice when we do not call out the ones who are stepping into the role and giving examples of what it means to be fathers. We do our young women a disservice when we do not show to them that there are men walking this earth right now who gladly, who willingly, who eagerly look to fulfill all that is required to be a proud and good father. So I am very excited to bring Omekongo to you today. He is not the only example in my life of men who are stepping up. As I said earlier, my brothers, my siblings, you can't come for them when it comes to the fatherhood piece. I have friends, I have colleagues, I've seen other examples. So today, here's the voice of just one man who is here to show us, to remind us that he is one among many who are doing what needs to be done. And in his honor, I'm rocking one of his t-shirts. It's from his Free Your Mind company. I'm a little more casually dressed than I usually am, and that's because I wanted to pay a little homage to Omekongo. So here he is, Omekongo Dibinga, motivational speaker, diversity expert, poet, spoken word artist, not so bad on the PlayStation, but again, the role that he is most proud of, the role that he puts beyond all others, is that of father. So I'm pleased, so excited for him now just to share with you his thoughts on what it means to answer what he believes to be the highest calling on his life. Pay attention, listen up. I hope that you get something that moves you to see your role as a father, as a parent, just a little differently. Hey, Omekongo.
What's good?
Chilling. How's it going?
Yeah, you know.
Oh, I just squeaked the chair. Oh, well, we'll be fine.
It's all good.
So here we are today. Thanks for taking the time to talk to me. I know that you are a busy father of 2 children, my nieces, my little snookums, and my little pootie pootie. And I want to thank you for taking the time today. The purpose of this show today is we're talking about conscious parenting. And, I already introduced you so the guests know who you are. My viewers know who you are. So I wanted to jump into the conversation about what it means to be a parent. So one of the first things I want to ask you is, what is your approach to parenting?
Engagement. The first thing on the rail is engagement. I travel a lot, do a lot of shows, but most people probably don't realize that in all reality, the main reason they really don't see me a lot in terms of hanging out a lot is because I'm with the kids. It's not because I'm in like South Africa or, those trips are usually in and out. But I've always said to myself, I'd rather have my friends ask where I've been than have my kids ask where I've been. Mm-hmm. So my thing is, engagement, being with them, putting the phone down, not being on the computer when I'm with them, but actually being with them. I believe what people say when they say these are really their formative years. They're, being 5 and 3 years old. And so, we don't know how kids are going to turn up. You don't know what they're going to do. Right. But my main thing is I believe they're going to go down the right path. But if they choose something different, it's not going to be because they can say they had a father who wasn't about nothing. Mm-hmm. They're not going to be able to say that, these are the types of people I chose who aren't really doing anything because my father wasn't doing anything either. Mm-hmm. My number one thing is that I just don't want to be a burden in their life. I don't
What
want
do you mean a burden? What does
I
that
don't
mean
want to be
exactly?
somebody who's holding them back, physically abusing them, sexually abusing them, mentally abusing them, putting obstacles in their way, putting blocks in their way to their ability to be great. I tell them, I don't really care about your end product, as long as you try your best, as long as I really, really know that you put your best effort forward. And I don't want to be that person to tell them that they're not smart, that they can't do something. I just don't want to be that dude. I want to be somebody who's going to do my best to uplift them. And that's my philosophy. They didn't ask to be here. I mean, maybe Wayne Dyer would say, yes, the university, and they did ask them to be here.
People say that you chose it.
And that's all good. That's all good. I'm with that. I flow with that too. You know what I'm saying?
You'll flow with that?
Yeah, I flow with that. But they're here, and I have to do my best to make sure that my time with them is well spent.
So when you talk about engagement, though, be specific for me. So how is it? What do you mean by when you say? What does he mean by engagement? What does that mean?
Engagement. Talking to them, not just plopping them down in front of a television, and of course they watch television, educational programming, and the like. But not just looking at them as an accessory. They are my number one item. So talking to them, asking them questions. When they ask me questions, responding back with a question, not just giving them yes or no answers, but asking them, well, what makes you say that? Why do you think? What do you think is the reason why Elmo's red? Or whatever, because that, I want to encourage them to be critical thinkers, to not see the world as just, black and white, to know that there's some gray in between, and, playing with them, running around with them, speaking to them, and drawing with them, reading with them, doing math work with them. I believe that, they can go to the greatest schools, the worst schools, they can, do whatever, but, the primary person responsible for their education are myself and Kendra. We're the ones who are going to set the tone, because they can go to the greatest schools, but if they don't have a foundation, it's going to be worthless. Right. They can go to a horrible school, and if they don't have a foundation, it's going to be worthless. So that's what I mean when I say engaged. They need to know that I care about them, that I'm thinking about them, and that everything I do, really at the end of the day is for them.
You beat your kids?
Nah.
I have to ask these questions because people, have a lot of different perspectives. We got beatings when we were younger, and you'll hear most people. That's a conversation for another time.
Still hurting.
And people will say, well, my daddy beat me and I turned out all right.
Like, I just turned the stove on level 5.
I know, right?
God, come on. You know what I'm saying?
So why not? Why don't you whoop, as some people would say?
I just think that we're in a new day and age, and there's so much research out there that we should be able to find different ways of disciplining and reprimanding our children. Studies show that African Americans are the most likely to beat their kids, and for somebody to say that that's not directly tied to our experience as slaves, being whooped and everything, is just ridiculous. And, just because we did something or experienced something for 400 years doesn't mean that we have to continue that on. Just because we got the scraps from the slave master doesn't mean that we still got to eat scraps for our diet now.
Although we know some people still do. We're not judging.
I'm just saying, and so I believe that. And furthermore, let's keep it real. In January, third Monday in January, everybody comes out and says, I have a dream, and judge content of character and nonviolence, and
they're beating their kids.
Yeah, they're beating their kids
the whole time.
And King loved Gandhi, so I love Gandhi. And it's like, and they're going to smacking their kids up. And so my thing is like, if we're really going to be about nonviolence, we should really be about
bullying.
And bullying, we should really be about nonviolence. Hitting somebody in any way, shape, or form is an act of violence. People can say it's discipline and it's going to help them in the real world, but quite honestly, in the real world,
but you turned out all right. I did.
Well, who's to say? You know what I'm saying? I feel like I turned out all right. I feel like I'm turned out fine, and it's not to condemn our parents,
right?
Because a lot of kids, particularly in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, were getting whoopings of all racial backgrounds, and the way I look at it, that's just kind of what some parents did back then. And if they feel like that worked, then fine. But at the same time, they didn't have to worry about DSS being called and all this other stuff. You know, we're in a different time now. And I believe in different times we call for different circumstances. And quite frankly, you know, your boss can't beat you, can't spank you, can't whoop you. So to say this is going to help them in the real world means that these are going to be real world consequences that they expect.
That's true.
So if they get with somebody, then they step out of line with their boyfriend, or if I have a son with their girlfriend, then they'll expect to get hit, because this is how they get disciplined in that world. I'm not feeling that.
So then what do you do then? What do you do? A timeout person?
I'm a timeout person.
Does that work? I mean, I'm asking these questions sort of rhetorically because, you know, I live with you. And I also co-parent the girls and try to help. So they're rhetorical questions, but people are going to want to know, if you don't beat your kids, how do you get them to stay in line?
What you have to realize, what kids fear most is consequences. They just fear consequences, negative consequences for their actions. And we need to really think about that. So, you know, there are timeouts, there are removing of things that they like to do, certain activities, not allowing them to go and do certain things that they like to do, not allowing them to watch certain programs that they like. Kids, at the end of the day, they just want to feel loved. So they're going to do anything to make them feel loved. So if you show them something that you didn't love, a particular action of theirs, they're going to do whatever they want to do, to whatever they feel like they can do to make that up. So I do feel like, you know, timeouts work. I do feel like, you know, withdrawing things that they like to do work. And it's just a matter of, I mean, beating kids is the same thing like plopping them in front of the TV just to kind of get them out of the way. It's a quick response for us. It's a quick response for the parent. Let me smack them so they can know not to do this again.
And so I can get out my frustration and my anger.
And my anger. And so it's, you know, at the end of the day, just like with television, even though, like I said, we use it for educational programs and stuff, television is more something for us, for parents to kind of get breaks, you know, and so on and so forth. If kids don't need it, you can give kids, you know, some yarn and some rocks and some cotton balls and leave them in a room and they'll find something to do. You know, so I just look at it as, you know, we're in a new time. It's not about condemning our parents, you know, because we had great parents who helped us in a lot. But at the same time, our parents came from a generation where parents didn't play with their kids. Right. You know, and that was just different. I'm not going to say it was right or wrong. It was just a different time. And now we play with them, roll around with them. It's just a different time.
But so let me backtrack to something that you said that I think is really interesting. You said that in disciplining the children, you like to let them know that you love them, but you did not like their action. And what I do notice that in your parenting style, which I agree with, when you do discipline them or you do talk to them, there really is this distinction between you and your action. So in other words, you are this person that I love, but this action right here, I'm not feeling this right now. Can you talk a little bit about what that is for you? What's the intention behind that kind of discipline style?
It's the idea of what, you know, Zig Ziglar said. You know, failure is an event. It's not a person. You know, if you continually tell your kids, you know, you're stupid, what you're doing is ignorant, you're going to be a loser, you're going to end up in jail, then they associate that with them. You know, I remember at one point where, you know, Safi was doing something that I didn't like.
Safi being the 5-year-old.
Yeah, Safi, you know, being the 5-year-old. And I think I said something to the effect, you know, I'm tired of you always complaining about this particular thing. And I had to come back and correct that with her, because all the kid is going to hear is, I'm tired of you. Right. And so I said, you know, I had to go back.
Okay, we're back with Omekongo. We had a little glitch. One of the children that we love so dearly filled up our camera with some extra footage that we will not be sharing on the show right now. But I want to pick up where we left off. The last question that I had asked you was this whole thing about distinguishing actions from the person. And you were sharing with us an example of something that Safi, the 5-year-old, had done. So if you could continue.
Yeah, I was saying, you know, I'm tired of you always doing something. I forget what it was, but, you know, I just felt like after, you know, saying that, the first thing the kid is going to hear is, I'm tired of you. It's just like, you know, I saw one commercial where a kid tells their father that they got into college, but all the father hears is, you know, $100,000 a year or whatever. That's, you know, so, and I have to be mindful of that. So, you know, I had to come back and tell her, you know, I don't like this particular action. You know, I tell them, you know, every day or as much as I can that that they're great, that I know that they're going to do wonderful things, that they're special, and they're destined to do wonderful things, but they have to definitely apply themselves. But it's just really important that they understand that, you know, I don't hate them. I don't despise them. And, you know, people can talk about spankings and all of that type of stuff, but, you know, Deji, you know, our 3-year-old, if I say I'm not happy with you right now because of your actions, she'll break down. That's worse than any beating. You know, beating's only going to last for so long. You know, that type of stuff lasts forever. But, you know, you know, those types of, the language lasts forever. I mean, all of us can remember things our parents said to us positively and negatively before we hit the age of 10. So, you know, those things I say, you know, before, I'm always happy with you and everything you do, but I'm not happy with you, the way that you're not listening right now. And it's very important that they distinguish that, because what they feel is what they're going to become. Right.
And so it's interesting. Something else I heard you just say in these comments is what I hear, a little bit of a course correction. So you do an action, and even with your children, you apologize to your children. That's something that you actually do. You apologize to 5 and 3-year-olds.
Yeah,
as a grown person, I mean,
I mean, they have to. How are they gonna know it if we don't show it? You know, they have to.
Oh, that rhymes. We know you're a rapper.
You're Maya, yo. You know, I do the show. It's just, you know, You have to demonstrate what you want your kids to be, you know, and it's not just with them. You know, if they see, you know, Kendra and I fighting all the time and yelling and not recognizing,
Kendra being your wife,
yeah, no doubt, you know, and us not recognizing our wrong, you know, or apologizing to each other. Why are they going to feel like they should do it? You know, there are times where, you know, I felt like, you know, I raised my voice unnecessarily, and I've had to say, you know, Safi, I'm sorry for yelling. You know, I really didn't want to do that at that particular time, but I was, you know, really frustrated. I said something time and time again, and we know full well that there are kids who get beat who still do the same stuff they're told not to do. So it's not like it's a one-stop shopping type deal with a smack. So you have to apologize. If you do something wrong, you know, if I'm late picking them up from school or something like that, you know, they're sitting there wondering what's going on. Did someone forget about them? You have to say, you're sorry. You can't just say, oh, just deal with it, because then they're going to develop that mentality too. I'm not feeling that.
So, okay, so what I'm hearing you say is that there are some things from our childhood that you're holding on to that you believe that are strong.
Absolutely.
And there are some things that you have decided to make a different direction.
Most things holding on to.
Exactly. I'm with you on that for sure. What are some of your reference points for where you are getting this new information? What info do you have? Mentors? Do you have examples? Do you have where does the new thought come from for you in terms of shifting your paradigm relative to how you raise your children versus how some of the things that we came up with as children?
Well, I think, you know, the first frame of reference I would say probably comes from our mother, you know, really, because she's always had conversations, you know, she says, you know, oh, when you get married, it's important to do this. When you have children, it's important to do this or to do that in terms of, you know, engaging, being truthful, being upfront. And so she was definitely the first point of reference. And then, you know, I would say outside of that, I think also just coming from just being exposed to different kids, different cultures. Look, I know a lot of kids who weren't spanked as kids who probably maybe, you know, were probably worthy of some spankings, you know. And there's some times, you know, with our girls that I'm like, man, if this was 1980, it'd be, you know, it might have been a different story or something.
Because I was driving, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I was driving in the car one time with Safi and Deji, your children, and somehow the word spanking came up into the conversation, and Safi said to me, Auntie Muadi, what's a spanking? And I almost had a heart attack, because they really have no reference point for that. Yeah,
and I'm glad, and I always want them, even though, you know, sometimes, you know, I just want to, you know, you want to reach for that belt sometimes, like you got it when you were younger. I mean, like, for real. But, you know, it's just like, again, you just want to teach them restraint. And, you know, I've watched other people, and quite honestly, I think that a lot of parents should read, you know, the work of Malcolm Gladwell. And it's not about, he writes about parenting or anything, but he talks about, you know, entitlement and how people who come from different cultural backgrounds have a different sense of entitlement. And a lot of people who grow up in poorer communities don't really grow up with a sense of entitlement. They feel like they always have to ask before they do a particular thing, or they feel like they always have to look for permission. So, for example, someone gave an example of a gathering of majority black people at a gathering, and there was food on the table at this reception, and everyone's looking around wondering who's going to eat first, and so on and so forth. And a white person came in and just went straight for the food, didn't think twice. And I'm using a racial example right there, but it could have been a class thing. He might have been from a different type of upbringing where it felt like, well, if you feel like you deserve something, just go out and take it. And I started to experience that, and just to see how people raise their kids differently. And I just saw, there are some things I want to experiment, and some things I want to do a little bit differently. And also you have to ask yourself this one question I heard a woman say on the radio: would I want to be a child in my household? And I asked myself that question a lot. If Safi was my mother and I was her child, would I want to be spoken to in this particular way?
Oh, that's interesting.
Would I want to be treated in this particular way? And, sometimes I have to say, with that particular action, I wouldn't want to be a kid in that household, but most of the times I can say, if I was growing up in a household, this is how I would want to be treated. And if I can do that on as many occasions as possible, I feel comfortable going to sleep at night.
So, that's interesting. We have 3 other brothers who I talked about a little bit off camera who also have children who I think, again, as I said, before the segment started, I think are very strong examples of what it is to step into the role of father. You all have very different personalities, but everybody changes the diapers. I mean, you do things that men typically are supposedly don't do. What share some of your frustrations and your thoughts about how fathers are depicted in this particular culture, in the media, on television? What do you think fathers are getting a bad rap? What do you think's going on?
I think America hates women and fathers. I mean, at the end of the day, we know about...
I can always count on you for something provocative, Omekongo.
I'm just saying. We can go all day about the misogyny, the music videos, the television shows, the way electoral candidates get treated from Palin to Clinton, whatever. We know that story. But America hates fathers too. I mean, look at it. In the 80s, we used to have, Cosby Show, before that, the Brady Bunch and everything. Then it got replaced, with Homer Simpson. All-American Dad, Family Guy. And, guys are just looked at as idiots. If you really think about it, particularly over the last decade or so, at least probably up until like 2010 or so, you'd probably notice if you looked at a lot of the sitcoms, there were no strong fathers on television. You may say, oh, what about the Bernie Mac show? Bernie Mac was an uncle, for example. And, the other shows that had fathers, the fathers were clowns. There were some, even real life shows. And, maybe there was a grandfather in place, but, over like a decade or so, there were no strong fathers. We had Cosby Show, we had Rock, different shows that had, but people just don't have respect. They treat them like kids, the commercials, look at kids, fathers as, kids playing gadgets and toys like they're the next child in the family. And it's really sad.
And what's the impact? What do you think is the impact?
The impact is that people don't feel like they have to respect fathers. And people don't feel like they have to respect men. And then we have a culture that has songs, independent ladies and this and that. And we're treating kids that they don't have to look up to men in any particular. We're teaching it to our boys. Why would a boy who doesn't have a father in his life and is seeing all these other examples of fatherhood on TV, why would they want to aspire to be a father? A parent should be something you aspire to be not something that happens accidentally. But if you look around, you wouldn't want to be a father. The way they're blamed, the way they're acting like fools, the way they're treated as kids, that's the consequence. And so girls,
baby daddy syndrome.
Girls are growing up thinking men ain't about nothing, a lot of men, and look at these further consequences, particularly for black males, but for males in general. You deal with the court system, it's harder for fathers to get custody. Let's get down to the real of it. You could be like the best father possible.
It happened to a friend recently.
And unless you're like, really rich, really famous, and you can still have problems then. The system is stacked up to make you not want to be a father. Some of the government assistance programs that have come out over the years have made it easier for a woman to be single, to get the type of benefits, to encourage them not to be married. And so every single step that we look at, fathers are being further and further removed from the picture and being told that it's okay. And I'm just not feeling that. You know, having had, you know, a father in my life, you know, a lot of things that I do now are a direct reflection of what he taught me. Physical fitness, you know, discipline, know your culture, you know, know your roots. Do your best to help people, to protect people, have a spirit of service. You know, those are things that I learned from him that I didn't have to learn later on in life from some other type of experience.
So then what role do you think you can play, or do you even give thought to the idea of playing a role in bringing down some of those stereotypes? So in other words, when you're actively engaging with your children, is that something that also shapes how you interact with them, that knowledge of what you just shared with us relative to statistics and what's going on in the media, etc.?
In a good way and in a bad way, it does. Because, you know, sometimes I just want to walk down the street, you know, with my girls and just walk down the street. But I can't ignore the fact that people are looking. You know, sometimes they might be smiling, or you know, sometimes there might be younger kids who are kind of looking with an expression of, you know, they wish their father was around to do that. And sometimes you just want to walk down the street and just be. And some of my other friends who are fathers, you know, experience that same thing. People say, "Oh yeah, man, go ahead, raise them kids. You're raising your child. Like, this is what you're supposed to do."
Right. I give nobody extra props.
You know what I'm saying? It's like it's not babysitting when they're your kids.
They're your kids.
It's like
raise your kids.
So on that side, it's kind of sad. You know, but on the other side, it's like, hey, you know, I'm a proud father, so I'm writing rhymes about it. I'm writing songs. I'm writing poems and songs in tribute. You know,
yeah, because you wrote 2 songs about both your daughters when they were born.
Definitely. You know, they're gonna say, you know, my dad wrote a song for me. Right now, they think it's cute because they hear their names, but as they get older, they're gonna hear it again and really understand what it was that I was going through, documenting this experience. So I'm definitely doing my best to emulate what a strong father is out there in society. But first and foremost, you know, I'm doing that for my girls. Because, you know, a lot of people, as I've seen over the years, can look the part on TV. And I'm not talking about actors. You know, like can look the part on TV, but at home, they're doing everything that they're not supposed to do, or their kids never see them. I've definitely made a commitment and a vow to not be that dude. So, yeah.
And so do you have a daily practice? Is there something that you do? You know, this show, we're all about talking to people about their spiritual practice or something that brings them back to their core values, some type of ritual, some type of any activity that you do that sort of keeps you on point with your intentionality relative to your children.
I mean, for me, you know, I just wake up. You know, I say thanks, you know, for being able to wake up another day. You know, have some affirmations and things. And the main thing that I do, quite honestly, is I do my best to try to engage myself before I engage them. So I try to wake up early so I can work out or do my work. Because quite honestly, particularly when they were like 3 and 1, for example, this is learning experiences of being a parent. The one thing I learned is that I can't do my work when I'm with them.
Right.
I can't play, you know, I'm a video game dude. I can't play my video games when they're near me. Obviously, one, you don't want them to see certain images on TV or whatever, but also I found myself getting a little bit annoyed, like if they were calling on me or asking me for something while I'm trying to type or send an email or play a video game, whatever. And I said to myself, well, when they're awake, they're supposed to be the priority. So when they're near me, they have to be the priority. So I can't make them the priority if I haven't prioritized some things for myself first. So I'm getting up at 5, 6 a.m., whatever, at least getting my exercise in. Maybe if I got to do some reading or some writing or something, getting that in. So when they wake up, I can be fully engaged in them. Because all of this, you know, texting and stuff, you know, well, hey, I'll be right there and stuff, I've done it, you know, and it's just not right. And, you know, this is a tough society that we live in, you know, working parents, you know, both Kendra and I are working, crazy schedules, and, you know, sometimes those things are going to happen, but it doesn't have to be the main thing. It doesn't have to always be happening. It doesn't have to be the majority of times. The majority of the times, you know, I can proudly say that, you know, we're engaging them. You know, we taught them how to read. They didn't learn that at school. They learned that from us first. They learned how to do math, you know, with us first. You know, and so we work hard. We work hard in this house, outside of this house, but they won't be able to say that they didn't learn nothing. They won't be able to say that they don't talk good.
It was my daddy's fault.
Yeah,
I remember when Daddy used to our father used to get up when we were.
And for those who don't know me, I know it speak well. I was just joking.
I was going to correct that off camera too.
Sure.
No, but I remember because Daddy used to get up in the morning, like you'd hear him typing at like 5, 6 o'clock in the morning. You'd have to go to the bathroom when we were younger. That's when you'd see Daddy doing his work or whatever. Probably because 8 kids. That was probably difficult.
Yeah.
So it's really interesting. So in our final few moments, I want to ask you if you have any thoughts. I try not to offer advice because this is not an advice show, but any suggestions, any insights that you would share with another man in particular who is a father now, who may be feeling a little frustrated, who may be feeling a little bit under the gun a little bit, right? As so to speak. Any thoughts that you would share?
Bounce!
Run! Run!
People. You have to realize that as a father, it starts and ends with you. Whether you're in your child's life or whether you're not in your child's life, it starts and ends with you. Whatever you do, positively or negatively, your child in some way, shape, or form is going to point to you as a reason why they did X, Y, or Z, positively or negatively. And you have to take that responsibility seriously. And so what I encourage you to do as a father is, one, start linking up with other fathers. Make a community of other people who are going through what you're going through. They're not hard to find. There are blogs and groups and stuff. You may not have anyone in your immediate circle. You may have never been around somebody who's been a quality father, but there's lots of ways to engage with people on that level. And I also just remember that you have to take care of yourself. You're no good to anybody.
Amen and hallelujah.
If you don't take care of yourself. So just saying, hey, I'm here, ain't I? But you smoking weed in front of them, or whatever. Take care of yourself.
Oh, you're workaholic.
Oh, you're workaholic. Oprah had a show about kids who felt the need to kidnap their parents. Come on. You have to remember that the kids come first. So get up, set your own routine so you can have your own time, because it's very easy for you to feel like, your life is over now that these kids are here.
It's really just beginning.
Yeah, and it's really just beginning. So just, if you do your best to take care of yourself, that's the one thing. And the last thing I will say is, if you're married or even if you're not married, the best way to show that your kids that you love them is to love their mother.
One more time.
The best way to show your kids that you love them is to love your mother. They may just be, you may not be together, but it doesn't mean you have to be hateful towards her. It doesn't mean that you have to say bad things about her when you have the kids and when you see the kids. It doesn't mean you have to treat other women like they're garbage. If you really want to show them the example, don't talk about it, be about it.
Wonderful. Well, listen, Omega, thank you so much. I think that's a perfect way to end. I want to thank you for taking the time to talk to me this morning. Your comments were very, very on point, and hopefully there's some fathers out there who are listening, who listened and really heard what you said and will apply those lessons in their own life. So thank you for coming on the program, and maybe we'll have you on as a follow-up to talk about some of the other fantastic work that you do. Sure. Now it's off to the Plays Am to meet the girls. All right. Take care and have a good one. Yes, indeed. That was powerful. That was an awesome conversation for me. I, myself, even after knowing Omekongo for all the years that I've known him, learned a little bit more, something about him, learned a little bit more, gained some information and gained some knowledge that I will incorporate into my parenting. I'm an aunt. I'm not a mother, but I take that role very seriously. And I hope that those of you who are watching, particularly those of you who are fathers, or particularly those of you who have found yourself in conversations where we have been dogging fathers, I hope that giving you just this one example of the many men that I know, I told you, I got 4 brothers who have stepped into and are stepping up in the role of fatherhood. I know many men, many of my peers, many of my colleagues who are just doing it in a way that moves me to tears sometimes when I even think about it. I hope that we can start to shed light on and start to give voice to the fact fact that there are men in our community who are doing so right by their children, who deserve our support, who deserve our attention. Yes, there are those among us who are not doing what they should be doing, who need our support, not our judgment, but who need our support, who need resources, who need to have better examples of what it means to be a man, to be a father. Let's uplift those who are worthy examples and use them as examples, so that other young men in particular know that there is a different way to go, that there are men out there who embrace fatherhood in a way that maybe they hadn't ever seen before. We owe it to them. We owe it to the young fathers out there, and we owe it to the children that they are involved in raising. I hope that you have gained something from today that you can carry out into this week and share with others. I also hope that you have a fabulous week. You deserve nothing less. Thank you so much for joining me. I will see you next week after my Oprah experience. Until then, take care, create a great day, and remember, you're not a statistic. Your possibilities are not limited by probabilities. Bye-bye.